There's flawed logic in this plan. Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith, and I'm here with this month's instalment of Animorphs recap goodness. I'm going to clean my glasses. They are not nice. Better. If you are new here, welcome. I am recapping and reviewing and talking about every single book in the Animorphs series. Yes, it will take 5 years. Welcome to the beginning of the journey. Today we're looking at Animorphs book 12, The Reaction, and the cover gives us some key information. 1, we should trust no one. 2, it's a Rachel book. And 3, I am assuming at some point we are going to be told the difference between an alligator and a crocodile. Because I can't tell you which one this is. We open with a pretty traditional Animorphs prologue. Rachel can't tell us her last name or where she is because the yicks will get her, but she can tell us she's pretty, tall, blonde, great at kicking bad guy butt, and deeply traumatised by the events of the previous books. Yep, that's page 1. So Rachel fills us, the reader, in on the goings-on of the previous books and the cast of characters we're looking at, and I'm not going to reiterate that here when I could just link you to my playlist. Ding! We get the first inklings of plot as Rachel talks about a guy that millions of girls had a crush on, who then became a controller willingly. It was a shame I had to do what I did to him. It hurt me as much as it hurt him. Well, maybe not quite as much. But let's not count our genetically identical chickens before they hatch. We open at the zoo. They are on another cool field trip, wandering around the reptile section. Again, I feel the need to tell you that my school took me on a field trip to a supermarket. Yep. So they're rambling about and talking about how uncool Cassie's mum is, even though objectively she is incredibly cool. She works at a zoo. I find that interesting. Anyway, while they're having this conversation, a small child, a young boy, climbs up and falls down into the alligator pit. Or should I say crocodile pit? It's a crocodile pit. This is a crocodile. Noted. So there's a young boy called Tyler who's just fallen into a pit with 6 crocodiles. And Rachel's our warrior princess, so instead of waiting for whatever zoo protocols have been put in place to stop this to kick in, she just leaps over the side and jumps right in with that child, only to discover that she miscounted. There are in fact 7 crocodiles and one of them is fracking huge. So Rachel does what any sensible teen who is also an Animorph would do when faced with a charging, enormous crocodile. She acquires its DNA, which temporarily calms it down. And of course, because this is a book where things have to happen, something weird happens this time. For the first time ever, I felt sick to my stomach while acquiring the crocodile. Sick, like I'd swallowed some spoiled milk or something. And at the same time, I felt a swarm of heat prickles all over my skin. I want known that at this point in my notes while reading, I wrote, "Is Rachel allergic to crocodile?" I want that known, that that was a thing that I wrote down before I had read the rest of this book. So Rachel dashes off to find the boy, and apparently, for some reason, her brain thinks that this enclosure at a zoo is secure enough that she can morph into this brand new crocodile morph, which, as we all know, is a difficult thing to do because it takes a while to get used to a new morph, but like right in the enclosure. There are no other good options here, apparently. Was there no CCTV in 1997? Like, my research team, please look that up. And like, zoos are designed for you to see as much of the enclosure as possible because otherwise when you went to a zoo you wouldn't see anything. There's flawed logic in this plan. And of course, the little boy is coming to while she morphs crocodile, so he's presumably seeing some horrifying half-human, half-crocodile mess. And to top it all off, the crocodile mind that she is trying to get used to is basically just hungry. The crocodile knew 2 things. There was prey, the little boy, and there was an enemy, the other big crocodile. So while the battle between these 2 genetically identical crocodiles is going on, Rachel thought speaks to the small boy, says she is the good crocodile and he should climb on her back. I really hope we encounter this boy in like 8 books time and he's just like, yes, crocodiles can speak. Nobody question me on this. Also, Jake was annoyed when they morphed rats to help out with a science experiment like 4 books ago, so I can imagine he's really gonna love this plan. The child is rescued, Rachel makes it out okay, the boy makes it out okay, even the big crocodile makes it out okay, except for some surgery that's needed. So hooray them for injuring a crocodile and presumably having a really confusing story for the zoo to explain later. Confusing stories for people to explain later are going to be a big theme in this one. So they're in the barn later debriefing on the events of the day, and Jake is, as I suspected, kind of annoyed at them. But then she also came very, very close to showing the entire world what she really is, Jake said, using the low, silky voice he uses when he's really upset. Is anyone else deeply uncomfortable Jake is in charge, more or less. No one exactly elected him, but if we ever did vote on it, he'd get all the votes, except his own. There was just never any question who was going to be the leader. Probably because we all know Jake isn't the kind of person who really wants to be a boss. He does it because someone has to, not because it makes him feel important. For my full thoughts on Jake's leadership, please see all my other Animorphs videos. Tobias the Peacemaker swoops in, not literally, but he could, he's a hawk, and he suggests that Rachel ask Jake what he would do if he was in that situation, which is actually super good conflict resolution, and I am going to write that down. For a moment, I considered mentioning the way I'd felt sick while morphing the crocodile, but I decided against it. Why give Jake anything else to worry about? I don't know, because it might be important? You bean? Okay, so on to the actual plot. So that teen heartthrob we mentioned earlier, that person who had so many crushes on him, that was a sentence. So he is the teen host of a TV show called Powerhouse, and it sort of feels very Justin Bieber-esque, but he's not a pop star, he's sort of the TV show. Anyway, doesn't matter. Teen celebrity. Rumour has it that he is going to be a spokesperson for that Yeek cult, the Sharing, and his name is Jeremy Jason McCole, which is just the most stupid name, and bonus stupid points if it's a stage name, in which case you could have chosen it. But according to Cassie and Rachel, he's the single cutest boy on the planet, so there we go, what do I know? But obviously the downside of that is that if the single cutest boy on the planet endorses the Sharing, then millions of teenage girls are going to sign up to voluntarily become Yeeks. Cassie and Rachel agree that, you know, if they really have to, if the burden falls upon them, they will in fact get close to Jeremy Jason McCole. Just a slight interlude while Rachel works on some homework, which means that I get to point out some delightfully 90s tech references. I dropped out of the word processing program and logged on to the internet. She's looking up Jeremy and deciding if he's a controller or not. I had to wait through several busy signals to reach his own actual homepage. Just more memories. So she's scrolling through his upcoming events page, and it turns out he's coming to town in like 2 days to appear on some talk show. I mean, thank goodness, or there'd have been no plot at all. But there's no time to obsess about the proximity of this particular heartthrob. I took a deep, steadying breath, but I couldn't quite do it. My breathing was short, rough, like I was being squeezed. A swarming feeling of heat, needles spread across my skin. This wasn't about Jeremy Jason. That his full name? There was definitely something wrong with me. I couldn't breathe. I sucked in air and pushed myself back from the computer, and that's when I noticed my hand. My right hand was green, a dark, mottled reptile green. So Rachel's halfway through morphing into a crocodile, and then she suddenly starts morphing insect, and then, let's remember she's in her upstairs bedroom, she starts morphing elephant. And because elephants aren't meant to be upstairs, she falls through the house into the kitchen. Having confirmed that she did not in fact crush her sisters, Rachel manages to morph back, but what on earth is going on? When she's at the hospital, she even manages to get some media interest, because she was also the girl who fell into a crocodile pit earlier today. How did it feel to fall into a crocodile pit and then have your house fall down on you? Not very good, I answered. I love Rachel. Rachel's going to go stay at a hotel while her house gets sorted, but in the meantime she has a particularly good idea. With all this media interest, maybe she could appear on a talk show. Maybe a talk show where a particular teenager with a stupid name might be appearing in the future. At the hotel, Rachel spills the beans to Cassie about what went on, and they both agree that it's been particularly weird, especially given that the rules of morphing as we know them are that you cannot morph one animal to another. You have to go back to normal between. So they agree to do what they probably should have done the moment it happened and talk to Axe about it at some point. Back at school the next day, because why would you take any time off having just fallen through your house and had your entire world taken away from you? Anyway, Rachel is called to Vice Principal Chapman, who, let's remember, is a Yeek, to his office. Chapman goes on at Rachel about how she's no longer applying herself in the same way. Her parents just split up. She's fell through a house. Like, what do you want? I squirmed in my seat. This was insane. I wasn't sure if I was being interrogated by a dangerous controller who suspected my true identity, or if I was just being lectured about my grades by an assistant principal. Normal things. But I don't think Chapman suspects that Rachel might be one of the Animorphs, because he just tries to recruit her to the Sharing, apparently because he suspects that falling into a crocodile enclosure and falling through a house might be signs that she's in some way troubled. Essentially says, I think maybe you jumped into that crocodile pit on purpose. And yes, she did, but because there was a child in there. While she is politely declining Chapman's offer, Rachel starts to morph Grizzly Bear, probably the worst possible situation this could happen for. And basically, he dismisses her. She stands up with full Grizzly Bear legs and is just like, do you like my boots? Like, it's like she rolls just a nat 20 on something and is like, yep, this works. You managed to convince him. It's fine. Your bare legs are boots. bare legs, you know what I mean. I meant to ask Axe about my little problem, quite a big problem, but I had promised Cassie I would, but right after school we had the mission, and if I brought it up then, everyone would have made me stay home. Yeah, because you're a liability. So she's off to meet the gang, and the current plan is to go scout out Jeremy, who is currently staying on a yacht, because that's what teen heartthrobs do. Despite almost submitting to Seagull Brain, Rachel still doesn't say anything to anyone. So in Seagull Morph, they approach the yacht. We listen to the conversation between the actor, the producer, and the two other people. There's an actor, a producer, and two other people there. I'm skipping ahead for your benefit. And it was then that I fell out of love with the extremely cute Jeremy Jason. Essentially, Jeremy is fed up with fangirls, and the man on his boat, a mysterious man on his yacht, tells him that if he just agrees to represent the sharing, he can have everything he's ever wanted. Who could that man be? Why, it's Visser 3, of course. Cross that one off your bingo cards. Anyone got bingo yet? But again, worst possible timing, Rachel starts morphing in midair from seagull to elephant. Not an animal well known for coping with the sea, though elephants can swim, which Rachel discovers a little bit too late. But just as everybody is, hauling ass and morphing into better aquatic morphs to try and help her out, Rachel switches to ant morph at the same time as Visser 3 is apparently turning into something horrifying that looks like it might be able to swim. I looked at Jake, or maybe it was Cassie. I guess maybe I should have mentioned I was having this little problem with morphing her. No, it's much better to find out this way, Rachel. When you could get us all killed, Jake said. Very rarely do Jake and I agree, but this is one of those times. Like, the sarcasm is well-founded at this point. Here he comes, Marco announced grimly. Look out for those spears. They look nasty. The what? I asked. The spears? What spears? The thing Visser 3 morphed into. I can't be sure, but I think maybe it shoots spears out of its mouth. Ah, Axe said, speaking up. I bet it's a leptin javelin fish. I've always wanted to see one of those. I mean, in a zoo or something. I wonder if anyone's done like an Animorphs bestiary. I'll have to look that up. I probably should have mentioned Rachel's the crocodile again, and while popping up to quickly take a breath before they're going to either run away from or fight this leptin javelin fish, probably fight because Rachel's crocodile morph is quite slow, she spots Jeremy, and he just seems to think this is all cool, so boo to him. The Visser hesitated. Ah, splitting up, eh? Well, that will only affect the order in which I kill each of you. What have I heard the human children say? Ah, yes. Eeny, meeny, miny, moo. He's felt quite dignified up to this point. He's definitely leaning a different way in his villainy in this one. Rachel, who, as we've established, cannot run away, she's too slow. She plays dead long enough for Javelin Fish Visser 3 to approach her, and then she chomps down on him. It was like biting into a water balloon. The inflated javelin fish exploded. All the water it had sucked in to fire its next spear went blasting out through the hole I made. And that leptin javelin fish learned a whole new way to fly. It squirted wildly through the water, blasted up through the surface, arced through the air like a sick dolphin, and landed far away with a loud, satisfying splash. And the whole time we heard Visser 3's thought-speak voice crying, "Ah!" Yeah, not particularly dignified. Axe has an explanation for all this weird morphing stuff, and it genuinely is Rachel is allergic to crocodile. Like, crocodile morph DNA. It's a weird Animorph allergy. Essentially, she has been reacting to strong emotions, and it's been making her do the morphing equivalent of a sneeze. There's no medicine, at least none that humans could create, but there is a process, something that happens naturally in these cases. At least it happens to Andalites. It's called hereth ilint. Andalite word of the day, meaning burping DNA, literally. It's sort of like spitting up the DNA, but Andalites don't have mouths, so they don't have the right words for that. It isn't easy. See, you basically have to morph the animal while you retain your own body. You have to create a whole living animal out of the excess matter floating in zero space. This is all sounding very difficult, and Rachel is a little bit concerned about that upcoming talk show appearance. Maybe you should have thought about all that, Rachel. You're the one who blew the mission today. You're the one who let Visser 3 know we were onto Jeremy Jason. Next time, maybe you'll let the rest of us know when you're not in shape to handle a mission. Again, I don't disagree, but at this moment in time, be less of an ass about it. Especially given that literally in the last book, Jake was withholding information about those weird time travel visions. Rachel can't do it, it's too difficult, whatever. So she just, instead of saying the next day, oh, I was unable to complete this, she just says, yeah, no, did it, it was all good. What could possibly go wrong? Rachel and Cassie meet at the TV studio, and apparently there's, conveniently, an animal guy on today, and there's a runaway llama at the studio, because of course there is. Rachel, who's trying to stay calm to avoid morph sneezing, instead reacts really badly to the makeup lady pulling on her hair too hard and starts morphing wolf in front of her. So she fobs the makeup lady off with some, like, I just need to deep condition or something, But Cassie has absolutely figured out that Rachel was lying, so that worked for all of 5 minutes. She was kidding herself if she thought she could control her emotions, particularly when teen heartthrob Jeremy turns up. Jeremy's rude because that's essentially his entire personality in this book, and then the llama turns up again, except this time the runaway llama is actually Marco, but there was a runaway llama before. There are a lot of moving parts in this next section, and you just need to live through it. It'll make sense by the end. It really won't, but I'm going to pretend it will. So they need a backup plan, because everything is going to go wrong. They need somebody who can morph Rachel if Rachel is unable to go. Somebody has to acquire Rachel's DNA. Marco is predictably creepy about this, so obviously it's going to be Cassie. They're waiting for their time to go on, and Rachel starts feeling really weird again, except this time it's kind of different, and maybe this weird DNA burp is about to happen. Things get weird. So Rachel is still Rachel, but her and the crocodile are sharing a brain, and that brain bites Jeremy, so she just bites him as a normal human woman. Bites Jeremy. He had it coming, but still. And then she also starts turning into the crocodile, but also a bear at the same time. Okay, things get even more weird. They run to the bathroom. Cassie is in the bathroom stall morphing squirrel because apparently that will be helpful. At the same time as Rachel is morphing into a bear, and the crocodile that she is half morphed into, like, fully morphs out of her. Like, what's the word? The cells dividing thing, but one of the cells is a crocodile and the other one is Rachel as a bear. So at the end of all this, we have a squirrel, a bear, and a crocodile in a bathroom. This sounds like the start to a really bad joke. The door exploded from its hinges, the main bathroom door. Out rushed a crocodile with a squirrel on its head, and a grizzly bear. Ah! The woman screamed. There's a woman outside the bathroom, I forgot to mention that. I think she found another bathroom after that. Really? I think she probably found a new therapist after that. So this strange animal battle is going on, and it manages to, like, tumble its way onto set where Jeremy is trying to talk about the sharing. So in some ways the plan kind of works. They do interrupt his, preachy bit on the news. Marco, the llama, trips Jeremy up and launches him directly in front of a crocodile. An angry, hungry crocodile. So they manage to flip the lights, and Axe, who is just there in Andalite form, again, when did CCTV get invented? Axe kills the crocodile, I think, or deeply injures this random crocodile that is genetically identical to a crocodile in the zoo, but is not that crocodile. The yik that's inside Jeremy crawls out, only to be trodden on by Rachel's bare feet. No, her feet are bears, but they're also, she's not wearing shoes, bear. They get back on set, only to find Cassie morphed as Rachel talking to one of the producers. And this producer guy seems to sort of suspect something is going on, maybe? Cassie pushed past the man. I turned my face away, not wanting to surprise her. And a light, the man snapped. My heart stopped. He was testing Cassie, waiting to see if she would react, if she would recognise the word. If Cassie hesitated or stopped, he would know. He would know. I shouldn't have even worried. When he rapped out the word and a light, she kept walking and without hesitation said, yeah, a light would be helpful too. Cassie is the best, Cassie is the best, Cassie is the best. So we're wrapping up with the gang back in the hotel, and apparently the plot thread of Jason is resolved because he's decided to go to a place where there are no teenagers or yiks, Uzbekistan. Apparently the Yikes just aren't fussed about Uzbekistan. So that's Animorphs 12. What have we learned? We've learned that you can be allergic to particular animal DNA. We've learned about the weird javelin fish. And once again, we've learned that the Animorphs didn't really accomplish anything beyond foiling a Yik plan, sort of, and also destroying one Yik who was inside a teenage heartthrob. Oh yeah, and let's not forget that they seemingly made a crocodile appear out of nowhere. I think my favourite aspect of this book is the implied post-credits scene where there's just some, like, intern at the studio having to explain this enormous dead crocodile that nobody knows where it's come from. It has no paperwork. I don't know whether one would do DNA testing on a crocodile at that point, but then they would find out that that crocodile had a twin. Just like, what's the explanation there and who is having to explain it? I hope that you really enjoyed this video. I am really enjoying going through these books. I am feeling in a rhythm with it, which is always good. Comment below with your favourite aspect of this particular book. Mine is, as I say, that credit scene. You can also, while you're down there commenting, follow me on all of my social media. If you haven't already, you can subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. It's gonna be some bloopers now. We get the first inklings of plot in this book when we wrote, and it was then that I fell out of love with the extremely cute. So that's the end of Animorphs 12. What have we learned? We've learned that you can be allergic to particular